All right, ladies and gents, welcome to the Heavy Decibels radio show. I have the great honour of speaking to a man that I saw tear the Sports and Entertainment Centre apart in 1988. I speak, of course, of Clifford Hoad from Kings of the Sun. Cliff, welcome to the Heavy Decibels show.
Oh my God! How you going, Frank?
Very
Heavy
well.
Decibels. What a name!
Yeah, took me all of 3 minutes to think of that one, Cliff.
Fantastic.
Hey,
that's what you get when you're right next to the PA and the band's cranking. And I saw a guy fall asleep one night inside a W bin, and he was in there for 20 to 30 minutes during an Angel show at Salinas.
Right.
And he just sort of went right in. You remember those big bins?
Yeah.
And they were one of the biggest, loudest bands, meanest bands, and this guy was so out of it, he just fell into the W bin and stayed there for 20 minutes. I don't know if he's still alive,
right.
But that was one of the most outrageous things I'd ever seen.
Yeah, now, I obviously opened up the interview with my very, very vivid memories of you on the Guns Over Oz tour in 88 at the Sports and Entertainment Centre. It was a fantastic sort of period in Australian music. It seemed that we were on the verge of conquering the world. What are your memories of that year in 88?
Oh my God, I thought we conquered the world.
Well, we nearly did.
My memories, oh my God, they weren't. Those shows in Sydney and Melbourne with Guns N' Roses, I think we had a good one in Melbourne, and the things went turned a bit sour in the Sydney show where they pulled the plug about, it would have been about 5 or 6 songs in. I remember we were playing a song called Drop the Gun, and we're playing away, and all of a sudden the guitars stopped, but all I could really hear, I was just playing the beat to Drop the Gun, and I'm playing, and all of a sudden my foldback disappeared, and then all I could hear was the acoustic sound of the drums in that massive hall, and it was really, really bizarre. And I thought, the sound's dropped out, or so they've lost the electricity. I'll just keep drumming, and then we just kept going and going, and then hello, the guitars aren't coming back in, the vocals aren't starting up, and it just so I just did a bit of a wild drum solo and out. Then I thought the guys were calling us off the side of the stage, and evidently, Axl got upset and told him to cut the show short. So.
Which getting Axl upset isn't all that difficult from all current media reports. So you're probably at the start of a very, very long list of people that are upset Axl.
Hopefully, I was one of the first.
Yeah, look, I remember that. I remember that Melbourne show, and I thought you guys absolutely. I wouldn't say blew them off stage, but I went there obviously at that stage to see them, and I was absolutely gobsmacked at the quality of show that you guys put on, having not seen you live before. What was the feedback that you got from that Melbourne show?
Well, we played really well at the Melbourne show, I thought, and that's most people say that you guys, blew them off stage. Well, I don't believe that any band ever blows another band off stage. I mean, they were established. They had their fans there. You never really blow a main act off stage. I mean, God help me, we've tried. We've been up there with the best of them, but. As far as a show is concerned, we play well. We come back from the States and we're playing over there. The band was sounding great. We were hungry. We were back in our own country. We were happy to be home for Christmas, and it was exciting. We had no idea that all that stuff was going to happen with Guns N' Roses, because originally I basically said that they owed a lot to Rose Tattoo and to the Australian press, and Axl took it the wrong way, and so the next night in Sydney, that's when it all happened. He just got upset and said, "Get these idiots off," and everyone, and then they did, and we were escorted from the entertainment centre. I remember going in the corridor like Spinal Tap out the back there, getting taken out to the car park. And it was actually really quite cold, if I can remember.
It's hard to believe. But look, that was obviously that was quite a while ago. the star was burning very, very brightly. At least for me personally, I thought the two early albums that you put out were absolutely world class. Then obviously there was some label issues with the label being bought out. What are your memories of that period?
Oh well, when we made the first album, we thought, we delivered the best album we could possibly deliver, because first albums are generally like that, because you're taking a lot of years to write your best songs, and then you get in there and you get the chance to record and you put them down. There's so much love and everything going into that album, and then the second album was heavier. I remember saying to Freddie DeMann, who used to manage Madonna, he was our manager, and we were upset that the first album didn't get a bigger run than it had, because once again there were issues going on with the record company and radio airplay. We suffered, we faltered, and then so we had to make another album. So what you have your chance, you have two singles, and if nothing happens, and I remember the head guy of RCA, he wanted us to cross over into it and become an albums band, like back then, so he saw us 4 albums in, you break the band slowly. But our manager wanted to sort of hit quick and fast like he did with Madonna. Mm-hmm. And the interest in Black Leather was there, and he had a big argument with the head guy, and then he just sort of pulled a rope on the whole thing. Anyway, what happened next was the next album. So we Jeff and I sort of dug our heels in, and we said to the manager, to Freddie, we said, we're going to make us a most kick-ass heavy rock album that's come out of Australia in years, which will be Full Frontal Attack. And he went, great, let's hear it. Yeah. Because he's so commercial orientated. Like he did Thriller with Michael Jackson, and this guy loved this, the 3.5 minute single.
Yeah.
And here's us telling him we're going to go the other way. And after that album faltered, because once again the company was bought out as our single was in the charts. We had a song called Drop the Gun in the charts off our second album. I remember riding along in PCH in the old Chrysler, whistling away, and we picked up a hitchhiker, a young guy on the road, and the band were going back into town, into LA, and the song come on the radio on K-Rock, and it was the most unbelievable, really surreal feeling. It was just like, and it kept being played, and the young guy that we had a rehearsal studio in town, he said, your song's all over the radio, man, your song's all over the radio, and we said, is it? We didn't even really know.
Yeah.
And then it stayed in there for 6 weeks, and then it eventually faltered. They got bought out by MGM.
Yep.
Hang on, not MGM, BMG.
That's
the
right.
Company. Yeah,
yep.
BMG, and that was good and bad, because then that album suffered, because a lot of the times it didn't hit the stores until too late, and it's all got to line up over there.
No doubt.
And then they had a change of the head guy. They got a new guy in, and then he come from Nashville. And because we said, well, this isn't, what, you can't send us home now. This is our second chance at the cherry, and both times the record company sort of faltered. He said, "Oh well, we'll let you do another one."
Yeah.
Oh well, thank you. Well, we don't. If we got another one left in us by this time, a lot can happen over there,
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, that's when Resurrection came in, the third album, and by that time, music had changed so much.
It certainly had.
Faith No More, and Chili Peppers, and the hip hop and funk and everything came in, and we just looked like really like we've been left behind.
It's funny how sort of frank and honest you are sort of about that, because having interviewed other bands from the same era, a lot of them don't like that sort of reference to then Nirvana came along, and sort of it did in a sense sort of date a lot of the stuff that I still thought was fantastic music, but obviously from the labels looking out, they had a very sort of set image that they wanted and a sound, and all of a sudden bands that I still think today have fantastic pieces of work all of a sudden just weren't relevant anymore.
Yeah, it's just fashion, mate. It's just, I mean, I remember when Nirvana hit, and I remember all those bands from Seattle and Oregon and up there, up in North California, because everything was coming out of LA at that point, prior to that, and it was very old-fashioned. If you come from LA, you didn't even get a shot.
Yeah.
You had to basically come from a certain place.
It was
quite unbelievable.
It was just amazing how quickly it all sort of changed. Now, I was reading some information on you over the last few days, and I did read one little snippet that I had never heard of before, and I don't know whether it was true, but I'm speaking of Motley Crue and Vince Neil, and there has been some recent speculation from Sebastian Bach from Skid Row that they were approaching a number of people to possibly fill in the vacancy left by Vince Neil, and Jeff's name came up. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm sure it did. Because at that time, that was around about Resurrection time, and all the uncertainty with Motley Crue was going on. I mean, they'd been around a long time before we even made our first album. Mm-hmm. But I remember we had a bass player who played on our third album, Phil Sasan. Now he played with Vince Neil and Ozzy Osbourne, and he knew everybody over there. But he did the bass honours on our third album, and he knew them all pretty well. And he got talking, and he was telling us one day that he's playing in this band, and this young guy would be ideal for Motley Crue or whatever, and that's how it happened. But Jeff at the time was so into what we were doing, because we were doing our third album, and wasn't interested, because in a sense they were on the way out as well.
Yes, absolutely.
At the time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
We didn't know it at the time, but they were having a down period, and I think that no one really wants to come in and be a changeover singer at that point where a band sort of dropped down,
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's go forward, Cliff, to sort of present day or recent history. You've been pretty prolific. I think last count was you've had 8 or 9 albums that you've put out. Jeff's no longer, my understanding is he just sort of had enough. Where is, you obviously still keep in contact with him? What's the sort of the future hold for you, and would Jeff ever look at rejoining?
I don't know if that'll ever happen. I think as brothers, we just grew up together for such a long time. And all that time spent in America, and we wanted to take it all the way. Like the Gallagher brothers, there's only so much you can handle of each other. And he's a strong-minded person, and I'm a strong-minded person, and you end up fighting and wrangling about things that you have no control over, and so in the sense that your successes and your failures, you have to share them all, and that's what it is. That's what it's like with brothers. If you're making the money that the Stones are pulling in, like Jagger and Richards, you'd possibly put up with each other. But when you're not, when you get older, it doesn't seem any real point in it. If people aren't hammering on your door saying, "Come out and play," and so we all get disillusioned and want to go off and do our own thing, him included.
Yeah.
So I don't know where he's at. I'm just grateful that I got the spark back to play. I can't really speak for him and where he's at musically. He's got a lot of talent. I don't know. I know guys that who've got heaps of talent, but it takes something to make you want to do it. And that something it's like a I don't know what is it, whether it's something that pushes you that extra step until you actually go and do it. You know, whether it's climb Mount Everest or whatever it is, or go surfing in Hawaii, something pushes you, and until that thing comes up, you sort of, I can't really say, but it come up for me, and heaven sent, you know, energy to do this new album, and I'm just very, very grateful that I got a second wind inside myself.
Yep.
Didn't have to look at someone else to do it and go, okay, and so if it doesn't work, then it's your fault, or it's your fault, or we should have done this, or we should have done that, or we should have recorded this other song. Bands go through hell making decisions for albums and singles and things, because if it doesn't happen, then, you know, everyone's looking at each other going, oh, I told you, I never liked that song in the first place, and it's really quite unbelievable what happens. But if it does go well, everyone goes, yeah, I always knew that song was a hit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's funny, you know, I've read so many music biographies, and whatever band that you're reading about, when it comes to talking the chapter on the single that broke them, you know, they always say, oh, there was a magic in the room from the moment we first recorded. We knew it was going to be a hit. But you often wonder how many times they all privately have that feeling and nothing comes of it.
Yeah, and I've also seen articles of people like the Beatles and that say, oh, we never thought anything of the song, like Yellow Submarine and that, and things like that became a hit.
That's right. Now I was gonna ask you, Cliff. I won't keep you much longer, but obviously you've been through a lot in the early '80s with the Young Lions, and then coming up through to what you became. Do you think, if you had your time, if you could go into a time machine, would you prefer coming out at the current time as a 20-year-old with that, as you said, that drive and that energy to want to do what you did, or do you think that you kind of liked how it happened organically in the 80s, where I suppose, you know, the electronic music and the downloads and things like that weren't present? Where would you prefer to be?
That's an incredible question, actually. I've never really thought about it, but I know how hard it's been now, and how hard it was even back then. And it hasn't really changed. The time has changed. The time has changed, and you know, everything's accessible now. You can go and see old Zeppelin footage on the internet and this and that and Black Sabbath and whoever. You could never watch that years ago. You could never find it. You had to wait for it to come on the television.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So your influences were few and far between. You're sort of living off the audio, which was just the records. No one had this. So everyone's got more of an idea on how to be a rock star now. You know, rock schools and all these, and, you know, The Voice and all these things happening, and pushing people, encouraging people. But it's almost like, because it's not of the era, it's almost like a pretend thing to me. There's obviously real rock stars out there. You know, don't get me wrong. They're rock stars will always be there. But for myself, you asked, I think that if I hadn't been through what I'd done earlier, I wouldn't have even got to this place now, which is. And I never thought I'd be able to write songs as good as I wrote when I was a young man now, but I've somehow been able to pull it off. And as I said to someone the other day, well, you got to surely get better at what you do. You know, you can't get worse, but people get worse when they have to listen to the record company or a manager in their ear going, oh, well, you didn't really crack it with that. You're going to have to try something different. But I was fortunate enough in this new album to have the right guys with me, like-minded, and I knew what I wanted, and I knew what was missing in the Australian sound, and I just went straight to it, just like they did with Mad Max when they made that movie.
Yeah,
I didn't anticipate any success or commercial, you know, gratitude. I just made the album I wanted to hear, and I felt was missing, and fortunately, a lot of other people had the same feeling. So when they hear it, they go, "Oh my God, he's making that record now." It's sort of like an old movie, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I there's your answer. I'm greedy. I like the past end now.
Yeah, no, look, it's a decision. You know, when I speak to a lot of the young bands now, and I've still got your debut album on vinyl, and I mean, I still listen to it probably once a month.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love listening to the old vinyl stuff. I remember at that stage, I've sort of got a fairly broad palette when it comes to that, but stuff like you'd remember bands like Mortal Sin, and the heavier spectrum, the Virgin Soldiers, right through to Roxas and stuff like that. Still get a lot of time on the turntable at home, depending on what mood I'm in. But I'm a bit the same. Like, I've adapted to both mediums, but I still use analog and I still use digital a lot.
There you go. So, I think it's never, in a sense, it's never really been healthier. As far as music is concerned, people mightn't be making any money out of it, but as far as music is concerned, it's smorgasbord of anything you want to hear or put your fingers on, and half the time it's 80% of the time it's all for nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
If you know. But well, even Metallica, they're a heavy band, but that doesn't mean they sit around listening to heavy rock all day. I'm sure those guys, they probably like Neil Young or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no doubt that they've branched off in all different directions. But one last question, Cliff, before I let you go. When will we see you back in Melbourne? I know you've got some European dates scheduled for Kings of the Sun. When will you be in cold, miserable Melbourne again? Well,
there was talk of us doing a show, and I still hope that it comes up in November at Cherry Lane with a whole lot of bands. There's a whole lot of Australian rock bands doing like a hiatus thing down there. So I'm sort of looking at around about then, realistically, which seems a long time off, but funny, stranger things can happen. But I'd love to come down and be part of that.
Well, look, it'll be upon us before we know, Cliff. The old November-December period.
That would be fantastic. I'd love to come back down and hopefully have a little bit more stagecraft under my belt.
Yep.
Maybe getting booed off the stage in Europe would toughen me up.
I'm sure I
remember one time we played before Iron Maiden in Italy on the Monsters of Rock tour.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I heard these sounds going chink chink like this, and someone got hit. I think the bass player got hit, and they were throwing sharpened coins at us to get us off.
Lovely.
And I'd never. This is a 30,000 strong crowd, and they were like just amped. Why they just wanted to see Iron Maiden. So I mean, so much for wanting to go on before big bands. You don't even get a look in.
No.
And then I remember having to grab the cymbal and run off the stage with the coins hitting the cymbal, like a shield. That's a true story. we were about 4 or 5 songs in, and that happened. Like we were like, get off!
They are, especially the Iron Maiden fans, they are a very, very passionate lot. So I don't find that hard to believe. But once again, Cliff, I really appreciate your time that you've given to both me and the listeners of the Heavy Decibel Show, and of course Southern FM. Can't wait to see you down here in November again, or maybe even earlier, like you said. But till then, mate, appreciate your time, and thanks very much for coming on the program.
Mate, it's been fantastic, and I just appreciate your support, and you're getting behind your Aussie rock, and it makes me feel alive and wanted, and so I can only respond to that by trying to get the band down there and play live, hey, and rock till you die, mate.
No worries, Cliff. Thanks again for your time. We'll speak again soon.